If you pop your questions into the question panel, I will keep an eye on that and do my best to make sure I field your questions to our great panel today. I'm going to move quickly to allow them to introduce themselves. Let's start off with Louise.
Hi guys, I'm Louise McCormick. The digital world has been, I suppose, my profession and my hobby for over 20 years. My professional experience is rooted in digital customer acquisition, online and digital transformation across multiple industries, hotels, B2B, B2C, and I currently work in I&M in Ireland as the acquisition manager for digital subscriptions across all of our titles.
Brilliant, thank you very much. And Gamachi.
Hi, I'm Gamati Shivakumar, and I work with the driver and vehicle licensing agency in the UK as a software engineer. I started my career off after almost 18 years after graduating, teaching ICT, and then moved on to a technical role within education. I then joined DVLA through their master's degree program, which offered me also work experience as an apprentice. And this was 2 years ago, and I'm still with DVLA.
Jody was on mute, but let me go next.
Sonia, go for it.
Marina Brilliman is my name. I'm Global Business Analysis IT Manager at British American Tobacco. I started my career as management trainee with Siemens Telecom. It was really exciting, and it was in Germany. Since then, I lived and worked in 4 different countries. And I stayed true to technology and IT, even though I've studied economics and international management. So such an interesting mix. And in my current role, I do make sure that when we implement IT changes or business changes, that they do bring business benefits and that they align to overall company strategy.
Brilliant, thank you, Marina. And it wouldn't be a Zoom call, would it, if somebody didn't accidentally stay on mute? Sonia, let's hear from you.
Hi everyone, I'm Sonia Moisette. I'm a lead security engineer at Photobox. I'm also a tech lead and security manager at Pride London. I used to be a business consultant for 12 years. Then when I was based in South Korea, I actually moved to the tech industry. It's been 7-8 years now. I'm entirely self-taught. And recently, I've also launched an initiative around epic women in cyber and epic women in tech, which actually showcase journeys from different women working in tech, just to give more diversity and inclusivity on that side.
Brilliant, thank you so much. So guys, again, if you could add any questions that you have into the questions panel, and I will do my best to field them to the team. At the moment, I'm not seeing anything come through. So I've got a couple of questions to put to the panel. And I'm going to start with Louise, actually. Louise, can you have a career in tech if you can't have a tech degree?
This is a really good question. I think it's coming to the point that all businesses are technology businesses. So if you're on this, if you're attending this right now, you obviously have some interest in moving into tech. But I suppose the choice is getting less and less. It's not really an option anymore. Any industry that seems like it's not related to technology, it's just becoming a technology business. Business growth without technology is impossible. And so I will say, yes, it's absolutely possible. It's absolutely possible, and also it's something that we should all be looking to try and do. And I suppose I've worked in a number of different businesses where I've had roles which are slightly more closer to tech. And as you move on in your career, you realize that there's a huge amount of people in the businesses who have skills around people management, project management, and those skills with the addition of a little bit of tech can really, really see them grow in companies. So if you have, for example, someone who's managing, just say, for example, a contact center, the person who's managing the contact center that embraces technology just even a little bit, even to like 20% of their job by going and doing a course and learning about chatbot technology, for example, they're going to see themselves advance on in their career. And you know, they've acquired that 20% new skill that just really, really enhances the skills that they already have. A lot of what's, you know, learned in computer science degrees and stuff, that's really hardcore technology stuff. And you don't need that. Just like a 20% addition to any job is going to really, really enhance someone's career and see them move into a technology role from a non-tech role.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Marina, I think you also said that you didn't have a tech degree. What gave you the confidence to move into, to even apply for what was quite a technical role?
I think that I have the interest in technology. I have very structural mind. I like modeling, and I like to work in male-dominated environment. I think it's what made me apply for the internship with Siemens at first, and then later on moved to British American Tobacco and work in IT. Saying that, if we're looking at different IT jobs, there are some which are truly technical, like software development, hardware development, IT security, but there are business-facing roles. And it's exactly where people without an IT degree will face very nicely. Like my example, all of my roles within IT were business-facing, and you can name a few, like business analysis, project management, business partnering, account management. You can work in sales, you can work in some roles in HR or finance supporting IT. The opportunities are there for you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Gamaji, I'm quite interested to hear about your journey, because you made that shift. What concerns did you have about re-entering the world of technology after 25 years? And what gave you the confidence to give it a go?
Yeah, to be honest, I wouldn't call it re-entering, because as soon as I graduated, I not started working at all. So I was just a homemaker. So my first ever, the biggest barrier was I had no exposure to the outside, world of work, raising a family. And then after 18 years, I decided, okay, I'm going to give it a try in the job, go out to work. And that was a very terrifying moment and, major decision for me. So that was my biggest, it was fear than anything else. Fear was my biggest barrier. So I just, decided to take smaller steps. I started volunteering so I could, build that confidence to get to know people, work with people, and those sort of soft skills that I would require. And then, gradually moved on towards, went into retail for some time, customer facing role. And then I moved on to teaching ICT. It wasn't really hardcore technical stuff that I was doing, in that job. And again, as I said, fear is the biggest barrier again. I was like, oh my God, technology has moved so much on since I graduated. Will I be able to cope? All that self-doubt and underestimating my own capability. It was hard to come out of it. But I think I just got to a point where I had nothing to lose if I tried. Unless I try, I'm not going to get over that fear. And that's when I said, okay, let me try looking at something. And for me, different people are different. For me, a structured learning helps for me. So I tried this degree program that the DVLA had to offer, and it's been good, because half the time what you learn in a university or a college is not the same as what you would experience when you get out into work. It's completely different. It's just applying what you learn into work. That's the hard part, and I was able to get a balance here. I was able to experience both, and that's what is helping me now. Yeah, I would think most of my confidence also came from my family. They were quite encouraging about this. As I said, go for it. And yeah, that's how it is. I think you just have to bite the bullet and take the leap at some point, I think.
That's brilliant. It's that piece around having people in your corner believing in you. And I know many of you have just come from a talk on imposter syndrome, about those inner voices. You know, we're very good at giving ourselves reasons not to do things. So it's really inspiring to kind of hear how you push through that. In terms of building confidence, I've got Sonia, I wonder if you could give a bit of advice. So if I were thinking this starts to sound interesting, maybe I don't have to be a tech expert. I think I might quite like to become one though. What's out there for people to kind of dip a toe in the water rather than go full on into now I will do an MSc in computer science?
Yeah, sure. I would recommend probably for all those women to attend meetups. So there's quite a few meetups for in tech, and specifically also for women in tech. Why am I recommending meetup for women in tech? Because usually it's more like a safe space where you could ask questions without being judged, or might have comments if you're asking specific questions that you might think that it's stupid questions. There's no stupid questions. This is also why it's probably better to start with women in tech meetups for that safe environment. It will also allow you to, well, learn and upskills on that side to learn new things, but also to network with other women in tech, where you could ask questions about their career, their journey, how they started in the tech industry. I would also recommend to join some groups or communities also on LinkedIn around women in tech. Usually they have Slack workspaces where you can join and also ask questions, or you can DM specific people to ask a little bit more and just learn about their journey in the tech industry. And same, you can also network, because I think it's also good to strengthen your female networking if you have any questions specifically on that. And you have also mentoring opportunities, which is a good thing as well if you want to start in that industry. So yeah, I would say meetups and communities is a good starting point. Well, you can get like more details on specific industry. Should it be like software engineering, cybersecurity, networking? You probably find someone who can answer your questions.
Thank
I
you.
add to what Sonia said, because I recently have discussed this topic with one of my friends who wanted to join IT forces. And the main message from my side was that to work in IT field, you actually don't need to be an expert in everything. You need to like the change, you need to like the challenge, and you need to be ready to learn. And don't forget that IT community is by far the biggest one in this world. Those are the people who've been online for ages, and they're happy to share their experience, they're friendly, and you can get answers 24/7 because they live and work all around the world. And when you really don't know where to start, but you just feel that it's something exciting, ask somebody who's already working in this field to have a look, to just connect to their computer and watch what they're doing. So why not? It will cost them nothing, but you will experience firsthand what they're doing and probably say, no, it's not for me. I will say, yes, I want to learn more. And then gradually...
I think that's such great advice for people, is, you know, there's so much keenness to bring people in. It's a very welcoming community, as I'm sure people will be experiencing today. So a couple of questions have just popped in. And please do give me a wave, panelists, if you want to field it first. I've got from Satya. In most of the organisations, people in pure technical or organisation role can't move up in the org structure without having to take up managerial responsibilities. Is there anything you can suggest that would help overcome this issue? So I'm presuming that's a kind of a question around the technical career path versus the managerial career path. And I'm thinking maybe I want to ask that of Sonia in the first instance. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess it depends on the industry, the type of tech you're working at, because it will also depend on your MV if you want to be more stay technical. In my sense, I would say that I'd rather be technical to understand all the discussion that is going around with the different engineers. and also the different stakeholders in the business, even if you're not hands-on, but having that knowledge of technicalities that will help you in the discussions. I guess this is probably why you need to keep up to date on some technologies. Well, as I said, it will depend on your industry.
There's also the other option is to specialize. So if you want to be an individual contributor and you don't want to manage people, obviously managing people, becoming a director of a department and managing people is a route to go up further in your career. But specializing is another option. So if you're a consultant, you become a consultant and you're focused on a niche area, for example, like cybersecurity, something like that. You can advance quite high, but eventually you will of course always hit a ceiling. Unless you're looking to start your own business, managing people is always going to be a requirement at some point. But I think specializing is another good option to move up without taking on direct reports.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Sonia. I've got a question from Claire Butcher here. And guys, if it looks like I'm looking up into heaven, it's because it's on my second screen where the chat is coming up. So Claire has asked, learning new stuff while working part-time and raising a young family is really hard. What's the panel's advice on how to handle everything? And how can companies best support employees in this? Marina, we had a little talk earlier about you getting your daughter out of the door successfully. So let's start with you on that one. What are your thoughts?
Happy to share a couple of advices. So, first of all, nowadays it's a common practice to have flexible working arrangements, and many companies will support it. If you are serious about learning something new, first of all, you can ask your employer, for example, to free up, let's say, 4 hours a week of your time. You will get less money, but you will be able to dedicate this time to your learning. It's one way. The second option is, again, a lot of companies are providing trainings to their employees, and you can discuss it with your line manager and agree that you want to learn certain things, you need time for it, and agree when and how you're going to do it. Of course, you can also take sabbatical and spend even a couple of months learning and doing stuff. It's a third option. And you can also ask to join the project and do it.
Thank you. Any thoughts from anybody else on the panel on that one? So kind of learning whilst you're working, whilst you've got life that clearly runs alongside, whether that's family or other things.
I think the one thing that everyone should bear in mind is that we can't absolutely know everything and learn everything. And one piece of advice my manager gave me was exactly that. Anybody, even an experienced person, was not obviously going to know everything in tech. It's a very vast field. I would say, even if we were able to manage short bursts of learning, and then, it's just, it's micro learning. Just do short bursts whenever whenever you find time, and that could all build up to that, wherever you want yourself to be in. And I agree with Marina, agree with a learning plan and a development plan with your employer. Yeah, for me that was the key. Just try and learn as little as possible whenever I could, and then just keep building on it. It is hard, but then just keep saying, that you're nearly there, and just, it's just imagine a light at the end of the tunnel, and that will keep you going.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Gamati. There is so much research into, the power of small wins. And we're great at talking ourselves out of things because we have very high standards for ourselves. And so we think that we have to be all things to everybody straight away. So that idea of snack sized, and Marina came up with about 7 or 8 different ways of potentially approaching this particular problem. That's great. So I've got a question in let me just read it out so I do it justice, from Sue Hargreaves. So Sue's asking, she works in a non-technical role in IT. She leads the company's internal skills and competencies capability. Do any of the panelists have any advice around how to best keep on top of emerging technologies and trends as an IT generalist, rather than, say, an IT subject matter expert in a particular technology? So, so how to keep on top of emerging technologies and trends as an IT generalist? Any thoughts of where to go, what resources to use? Anyone? Louise, have you any thoughts? Otherwise, anybody else hop in?
Yeah, sure. It's a difficult question. I suppose there are a lot of blogs. If you find somebody who works in your area, you know, for me, in say marketing, for example, there's different experts who will write blogs on the latest technologies. And if you can find 2 or 3 good sources within your specific industry, they're usually pretty good at leading the way. You know, for that specific industry, I'm not sure who the bloggers would be, but you know, they will exist. And if you find 2 or 3 of them, you can just follow them. And there's also some groups on LinkedIn, which can sometimes be a good source. And if you join those groups, different people who work in that industry will be sharing different things. And also just looking at what other companies are doing and what technologies they're bringing in. If you look at, so I'm not sure specifically what the industry is that you're in, but if you look at what technology companies are doing, they're usually the early adopters. So if you're working in something more traditional, like, you know, for example, I work in newspapers, and you can usually look at what technology companies are doing within their HR department, and it'll usually be the earliest thing. I think generally getting in with new companies who have good APIs, you'll see what companies people are coming in, and they rise to the surface quite quickly. As long as they're flexible, adaptable technologies that you're bringing in, you know, you'll usually be making a good decision. But yeah, I think find the bloggers within your specific industry, you know, who are showcasing the latest things, and then joining LinkedIn groups. Those are what I tend to stay on top of.
Brilliant.
Also, I think it would be wise just to dig deeper into your company's knowledge. One of the best people whom you can ask for help are probably enterprise architects. They're always looking for what's there, what's outside, and I'm sure they will be positively surprised if you will approach them and ask for help.
Yeah, people love to share their expertise and knowledge, and it's very rewarding when people display an interest in what you do. Brilliant. I hope that answers your question. It feels like there's lots of potential areas you could go. I've got just a thought building on that from Carrie Young, saying that Carrie found Open University really, really helpful. Particularly, she was even provided with a female examination officer. She had a baby during that time and was breastfeeding. So it feels like there's genuine support out there to help people. I've got another question actually around mentoring, and I'm sure some of you have been asked for your help as mentors on our panel. But question from Cornette is, when do you feel ready? When do you feel ready to start giving back and becoming a mentor? There's always that sense that you feel like you have to learn so much more first. So what do you think about that, panel? Sonia, what do you think about that?
I think there's no good time. It's just also we need to keep in mind that mentorship is a two-way relationship. It's not only the mentee learning from the mentor, it's also the mentor learning from the mentee. It's also about sharing experience. So as long as you have business experience or in other industries, and you could share that with your mentee, it will still be valuable. So yeah, I would say, yeah, that's a two-way relationship that we don't have to forget that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of myth around the mentor, isn't it? It's like get ahead, get a mentor, as if it's the be all and end all. And it's a big grand name for something that is actually just 2 people who have a mutually beneficial relationship with one another, where you learn from each other, enjoy one another's company, and believe in each other. So I guess if you feel you've got any experience, any wisdom at all to pass on, I mean, and most people who've been in any job for longer than 6 months have got some advice that would be helpful for somebody who's only been in it for 2. So I definitely encourage people to go for it. I haven't got another question coming through on the chat just yet, but it could just be I need to refresh my screen, which I shall do. But in the meantime, I wanted to ask, you know, how inviting is the tech sector to women? It's quite it had reputationally, and still I'm sure is true, quite a male dominated, potentially macho culture. Articles, books exposing Silicon Valley, etc., don't help, and I think they are not necessarily representative. So what thoughts do you have, our panelists, on that sense, for anyone who feels like, do I really want to enter into an industry where I'm new to the skill set, and also I'm pretty much, you know, not the only woman in the room, or people might think, oh, she's the box that they got ticked for the inclusion on women. That's an imposter syndrome voice that often comes up for people. Any thoughts on that? Gamati, do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, true. You know, I think that would come across as a serious question amongst, you know, most women. I'm not very sure about how the private sector, you know, private industry is. I don't have much experience on that, but I work for the civil services, and I found, you know, in my personal experience, they are quite, you know, quite welcoming. Yes, you know, I'm not being discriminated in any way, or as you said, you know, people are willing to help there, you know, and I still think, you know, there could be more done, you know, by the industry, from the industry, like, say, when there's a recruitment, and then when you do see a, you know, job opportunity, you kind of picture, you know, like, oh, when you visualize, you see a man rather than a woman, don't you, when you read an advert or something. And you know, maybe there should be you know, specific recruitment opportunities just to recruit women alone, you know, just make it more visible, or make it more specific, you know, that women are welcome. Something towards that end that might probably encourage more women to apply, because in my, we are 5 teams, and we're like only 2 women now in that squad. You know, it's there's still much more can be done, I suppose, but I don't know. I mean, I've not had a negative experience, so I think it's just, you know, just go there and you know, give it a try.
Thank you. Anyone else? What are your thoughts? What's your experience?
I would say in a room full of male engineers, don't be afraid to speak up, be vocal, ask questions. Don't be retained by your imposter syndrome, because obviously, and this is more certain, that someone in the room won't know all the answer of the questions. There'll also be some people in the room that don't have all the answers. So yeah, don't be afraid to be vocal in meetings with male engineers. Just ask questions. Yeah, just sure that you also have some ideas. Don't be shy on that.
And what about this this bro culture? And Debbie Asinda asked this as well on the questions. Have you come across that at all? This kind of bro culture? Not particularly. It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because
the phrase bro culture, like, applied to the tech team that I work with, it's just not. No, it's not real. In my experience, I work in a number of different companies, and developers are usually some of the nicest people. The more techy the job, some of the nicest people, analysts, just they're so happy to answer questions or do anything. The word broke, the phrase bro culture, I mean, maybe in Silicon Valley, but certainly not any of the businesses I work in Ireland. The tech people are usually some of the nicest people in the whole company.
Do you know, that would be my experience too. I'm an exec coach. I coach a lot of people in very senior tech roles, and you know, they are the most thoughtful, reflective, and unassuming, non-ego driven people that I've come across. So it's interesting, isn't it, where that stereotype prevails, and it doesn't bear scrutiny often to actual most lived experiences in most organizations. As you say, potentially in a tech startup in the middle of Silicon Valley, maybe.
Yeah, where there's more money than anything else, and the money's rolling in from investors. Maybe this thing happens, but I think, you know, I think it's a really nice relationship that you can have with tech people, because most tech people that I've worked with are problem solvers, and I'm also a problem solver. But when you have a problem solver, and then you have somebody in the business who's, for example, non-technical, and they have lots of problems in the business that they want solved, and oftentimes that conversation doesn't happen, because the tech people and the people with the problems in the business often don't have direct contact. You know, the business problem will be created and defined, and then it will go somewhere and, you know, eventually be solved. But oftentimes having a relationship directly with a non-technical person and technical person can be a really wonderful thing, because you have all of these problem solvers who have technical solutions that the business side of things, from the non-technical person, they wouldn't even know to ask for that particular piece of tech, because they wouldn't even know it could exist or something could be done that way. So I would say definitely don't be put off by bro culture. Set up some meetings with people working in your tech department, have a conversation with them, you know, especially if you're working in the same business as somebody. You know, they're approaching the business from one side, you're a non-technical person looking to get into tech. Just ask to have a meeting with somebody, you know, who works in the department. And actually, you'll probably have a great chat with them, and maybe come up with some, you know, some good ideas for the business.
Louise, that's great advice. And then you make your own opinions based on your own lived experience of the people you meet, right? And it's interesting, Sarah's just put in the chat that she's seen plenty of bro culture, but actually on the more in the business side than anywhere else. So, and you know, it exists, and that's a part of working life that slowly, hopefully more quickly, is going to disappear a bit. We've got a question from Anita on sponsors. Senior men and women, do you have sponsors, or what do you think about the idea of having this idea of a sponsor who's a senior man or woman in the business who would advocate for you going forward? It's slightly different to a mentor, because it's a formal, I am speaking up for you and I am your sponsor inside this organization. Have you come across that before? Would you advocate that?
I would say yes. There are companies where you need sponsors, otherwise you will not be able to progress your career. But again, there are companies which are more open-minded, and you wouldn't need a formal sponsor, but rather the person who believes in you. What I would recommend to everyone, you should be vocal about what you are doing. Because if people there up in the hierarchy don't know your name, don't know what you are doing, how can they promote you?
Yeah, there's a brilliant book called, I don't know if you've come across it, called Lift As You Climb by Viv Groskop, and it's Women in the Art of Ambition. And there's all sorts of very practical advice about exactly that kind of thing, you know. Ask for it, reach out, etc. Lovely. So Becky, have I got a question for from Becky, or is this more of a statement? Some of the questions are coming through in chat, so I'm just having a little skip between the two. Some people are asking just around the balance, just to revisit a little bit what I asked Gomati about, but how in your other worlds, in the other worlds the rest of you work, how representative are you? How unusual are you as a woman in your field in the worlds that you guys operate in? So Louise, Marina, Sonia.
So at Thunderbox, I think it's the other way around. All our security team is female. Which is great, but it's a bit of contrast with the other engineering teams. So it's quite interesting. Yeah, I would say still the ratio is probably higher, having more men engineers than women. But yeah, it's quite cool. At Thunderbox, you have an all-female security team.
That's great. Anyone else, Marina and Louise? What's it like in your world?
It was different through my career. When I just started in Germany in telecom, I was the only girl at that time in the whole department. Yes, we had the personal assistant who was female as well, but the rest were men. But again, it was Germany. In Russia, and I'm originally from Russia, there were more women in the team than men. And now here in the UK, I would say it's pretty much balanced, at least in British American Tobacco. And I feel very comfortable.
Okay, interesting. So it depends on the organization and the particular team, really. Louise, would that be your experience too?
Yeah, I think every company I've ever worked in, the directors were 90 plus, if not 100% male. Yeah, I mean, most businesses, when you get to a certain level, it seems to be extremely male dominated. In marketing specifically, you have a lot of women, and often women will be in senior marketing roles, traditional marketing roles. And then when you move over to the digital side of things, there's, in my experience, it tends to be more leaning towards male, but a lot of marketeers are female. You see that across all industries, where the marketing teams will be, heavily weighted towards women, but then on the digital side, the technical side. So when you start moving into, okay, this is the marketing driving people to the website, and then when it comes into the optimization of the website and the online e-commerce conversion side of things, tends to start moving towards being more male dominated.
Okay,
but,
thank you.
Really good scope there for women to move into technical roles, I think, from the marketing into the kind of web optimization.
Yeah, there's a real crossover scope. We're coming, unfortunately, in a couple of minutes, we're going to close. There's just one question I want to get in even before we move to a quick tip. But can I ask from Jess Clark, one of you in a nutshell, to say what can businesses do to help support women keep relevant with tech trends when they're on maternity leave or out of the business for a period of time? And I'm going to put that to Gamati, sort of what can businesses, so imagine you had been working at that time, what could businesses maybe do better to support people while they're off work to keep up with trends?
Yeah, I mean, businesses do have training programs, and it's just that when somebody is off on a maternity leave or any other family reason, you just have some sort of an arrangement where they're not totally cut off. If they could still access the resources, access the training courses that they are being provided, that would be good. And I think what's encouraging is a lot of more and more businesses are having these returnship programs now, where they take them back in with a 6 to 12 months or whatever, placement or providing opportunities where if they do change to switch over to something else new, or giving them that kind of opportunities, that's encouraging. But yeah. What would be good is just to keep them in the loop and give them the opportunities as they would have if they had physically been in the building. That would be great.
Perfect. Thank you. We've got a couple of minutes left. So what one thought would you leave the delegates with today, or one top tip or piece of advice if they're thinking of switching over to tech? Louise?
I suppose I'd say don't undervalue your current experience. It's, you can get an IT qualification in a couple of months. It takes years and years to build up business acumen, business skills. Don't undervalue that, because that's the really hard part to get. It seems like a challenge to go into tech, but actually getting a little bit of technical skills to enhance what you have, just value what you have.
So don't undervalue your current skills. Brilliant. Marina?
There are so many transferable skills, and IT is looking for you. And if you are listening to us, I believe you've made up your mind already and you want to join IT. Go for it. IT is exciting.
Fantastic. Sonia?
I would say don't let the imposter syndrome decide for yourself. I have a motto: is just stay curious, keep on hacking, and make it happen, because it's worth it. Just go for it.
Thank you. And Gamati?
I would say, passion is to be found, and you won't find your passion unless you try something new, or unless you know what's out there. So just go for it. Don't be scared. and just you know, see if you can learn something, if you can fit into that environment you're in, and just need to build that sort of confidence.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for joining. I hope you've had some valuable advice from the people on our panel today. You can keep in touch with them via chat. All of us are on LinkedIn. Please do reach out. And thank you very much for joining. Panelists, thank you very much indeed. That was fantastic. I could talk to you all day, and one day we will, face to face, over a bottle of something somewhere.